Right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today we're going to look at data summarization, right? Basically, it's a basic statistical summarization, which is mean, standard deviation, median, quantile, range, and sum. Right. So mean X is to measure mean of variable, especially for numerical variable. And SD is stand for standard deviation, right? So this function is used to measure numerical variable only, right? And we are going to look at how to compute median for the variable of X, right? And quantile, basically they will give you the minimum value, the maximum value, and then of course they will give also quarter number 1, number 2, and number 3, right? And then we're going to look at range, right? It will display a range of the variables, and sum is to measure the summation of the variable, right? So in this lecture, I'm going to show you using empty cars dataset. So where to get the empty car dataset? You can look at data and so if you look at data, we're going to look at empty car here. This is a ready-made dataset in R, right? Can you see the code, right? So we're going to use empty car, which is, let's look at the head of empty cars. Right. So this is empty car dataset. So basically we have 32 observation and 11 variables, right? The variable names for empty cars are starting from MPG, CYL, displacement, HSP means horsepower, drag means if you want to see the description of empty car, you just type question mark empty cars, so it will display the documentation of empty car, which is a motor trend car road test. So this data was extracted from the 1974 Motor Trend US magazine, and MPG stand for miles per gallon, CYL number of cylinder, DISP means displacement, HP means gross horsepower, and so on, right? So the first function that we want to see is mean, right? To find mean, but before we go to finding mean, let's look at the structure of empty cars. So for each of variable in empty car dataset, all are numeric type of variable, right? Let's say we want to find mean of MPG, mile per gallon, mean of MPG. So you just type MEAN, mean, MP cars, and find the variable mean, MPG. Right? It will show us the mean of MPG. If you want to find mean of horsepower, just type mean, empty cars, find the variable horsepower, and will display the mean of horsepower. Right. So this is how we find mean in a variable, right? Just using function mean, right? Next function that we want to look at is finding quantile. Means we want to know what is the value for quarter number 1, quarter number 2, quarter number 3, and minimum value and maximum value. The function is quantile. Let's say we want to see quantile of empty cars variable MPG, right? So if you can see, 0% means the minimum value of the dataset. The 100% represent the maximum value of the dataset. 25% represent quartile number 1. 50% represent quarter number 2, which is also equal to median, and 75% represent quarter number 3. So for quantile, this is the, if you want to find quarter 1, 2, and 3, just use quantile function. Right? If you look at horsepower, so it will display minimum value, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and the maximum value, right? And the next function that we want to see is median. So we just type median function. Let's say I want to see median of MPG, empty cars, MPG. So it will display the value of median. So median, if you look at quantile, MPG, 50%, 19.2. So median also equal to 19.2. This is a same value. Quarter number 2 and median are same because we are measuring 50% of the data set, right? So if you look at all of this function, mean, quantile, median, all are working fine when you have no missing value, right? If you have a missing value, if the data set contain missing value, right? For example, let's say I create a new data set, C1, 5, 7, and then I put the one missing value, NA, right? So X now contain one missing value, right? So if you have missing value in the data set, so this function will not compute mean for you, right? Let's say I want to compute mean of X, which is this value, right? It will result no missing value because in this data set contain missing value. So to rectify this function, to find mean without you want to omit missing value and compute mean, so we just type mean X and comma, put another argument which is na.rm, which is we want to remove the missing value, equal to true. So then now it will compute mean without missing value, right, for the same data set. Same goes to quantile. If you just type quantile X, it will not compute any value because the missing value is in the data set. So we need to put another argument, na.rm equal to true. So then it will compute the missing, the variable without missing value. Same goes to median. Right, median X will not result anything. So if you put the argument of na.rm equal to true, this is true. This is a shortcut of true. You can put true in a full sentence or just type T. So from until now, are you clear? So if you want to find standard deviation, right, SD, let's say empty car, this is a SD represents standard deviation, right? Finding standard deviation, right? SD represents standard deviation. So SD also work with no missing value. If you have missing value such as X, it will not compute any standard deviation. So you need to input argument of na.rm equal to true, right? So you can use TRUE or just type T, capital letter, right? Another function which is range, right? So range means compute range. It will result the minimum value and the maximum value in range. So if you type range, it will display the minimum value of the variable and the maximum value of the variable. So range, if you have missing value, let's say this one, So it will not result anything, right? So you need to input na.rm equal to true to get the value of range, minimum and the maximum, right? Another function that useful for data summarization is summary function. So summary function, just type summary empty class mpg. So it will display the result look like quantile function, but in they have one additional value, which is mean. So it will display minimum value, first quarter, second quarter, which is median, third quarter, maximum value, and another additional value, which is mean. So summary is another good example to get to know the description of the data set, right? So before we start with the data analysis, we need to explore and understand the nature history of the data set. So this is the one of the way lah to summarize the data, right? So another function that we want to look at in data summarization, which is row mean, col mean, row sum, and col sum, right? So row mean means it will take mean of each row of X, right? For example, let's say we look at a row means for empty cars, right? So now what R will do, it will take a summation of the mean of each row. So we have 32 rows, so it will display 32 means for each observation. But this one is not really useful for this data set because in this data set we have a lot of variable, which is different variable, right? So the mean computation of mean for this data set is not reflect anything, right? So but we need to know how to compute row mean. Another one is col mean. So it will compute mean for each variable, right? So let's say row mean, col mean, empty cars. So it will compute the mean for MBG, mean for CYL, mean for displacement, and so on. So this is one of the useful function for this data set. So we need to know what is the mean for each data set. So instead of using mean individually for each variable, you can just type col means to call all the means in the data set. Right. Another function that we want to look at is row sum. Row sum means it's same as a row mean. Instead of taking mean for each row, now it will do taking summation for each row. So let's say look at empty cars. So it will compute the total value for each row. So let's say we look at view empty cars, right? So now it will take the summation of each row. So this one, the first row, the total of first row is 328.98, right? Same goes to row mean. So the mean for each row for the first row is 29.907. So this is the function. We will use this function according to depend on the suitability of data set, right? Another one is col sum, means it will take a summation, of each variable in the data set. So col sum means it's the same function as a col mean. Instead of taking mean, it will take summation for each column, right? So for the row sum function, we already we already used this function in a questionnaire analysis last lecture, right? So this is some useful function for data summarization. So we will use this one in the next in data application, right? So now look at we will use a dplyr package to do data summarization. So of course, if you want to use dplyr package, you need to load library dplyr. Right. So let's say most of the time we are not interested to know we are interested to know mean and standard deviation for each variable. If you are using summary empty class, right, it will display the mean, minimum value, maximum value, median, and mean, right? But most of the time, if you want to do a reporting, we will report the variable with mean and standard deviation for if the variable normally distributed. If the variable is not normally distributed, then we will use inter-quarter range, right, and median and inter-quarter range. But before I forgot, another function to get inter-quarter range is IQR. Let's say we look at MPCAS, MPG. It will display the inter-quarter range of IQR. Inter-quarter range means quarter number 3 minus quarter number 1. Right. If you look at some quanta, MPCAS, MPG, quarter number 3, which is 22.8 minus 15.42. 22.8 minus 15.425. So we will get the same value, right? So now sometimes, as I said, sometimes we don't really want the minimum value, quarter 1, quarter 2. We just need some specific statistic value, such as mean and standard deviation, median, inter-quarter range, to report our result for each variable. So by using a dplyr package, it's very useful by using a summarize function. Let's say I want to report mean and standard deviation for MPG, variable MPG and horsepower, right? So I'm going to use MPCAS using the piping, right? And then the function that I want to use is summarize mean. Let's say this is to use summarize. Let's say I want to find mean MPG, right? So I need to put the value of mean MPG as a new variable, which is mean.mpg. This is a new the variable name that the column name that I made myself, right? And then comma, and then I need standard deviation for MPG equal to SD MPG, right? The next function value that I want to compute is mean horsepower equal to mean horsepower, standard deviation MP horsepower equal to SD horsepower, right? So it will compute mean and standard deviation for MPG, right, and mean and standard deviation for horsepower, right? So this function also useful when you want to group by some variable. Let's say you want to group by CYL we have table empty car CYL. So basically we have 4 cylinder, 4, 6 and 8, right? So let's say I want to compute mean and standard deviation based on CYL. Right, so compute mean and standard deviation based on or group CYL. Right, so in this case we will use empty cars and group by function. We will group by CYL, right? And then I will use summarize function to call mean MPG and mean MPG, standard deviation MPG, mean horsepower and standard deviation horsepower. So if you can see, we are reporting the mean and standard deviation based on each group. CYL, it will report mean and standard deviation for CYL number 4, mean and standard deviation for CYL number 6, and mean and standard deviation for CYL 8, right? So this is very useful. We not need to do a select cases or filter in the first place. We just use group by and followed by summarize function. Right, let's say we want to group more than 2 categorical variable. Let's say another categorical variable, gear, number of gear, because so we have 3 gears, 4 and 5. So now I want to compute mean and standard deviation based on CYL and gear. So I just use empty cars, group by CYL and gear, right? Then I just use summarize means MPG and horsepower, right? Just copy this one and paste, right? So it will report the standard deviation, mean and standard deviation for CYL and gear, right? So if you can see, there are missing value for standard deviation, NAN, right? So maybe this is because the value of MPG for CYL equal to 4 and gear equal to 3 is the same value. So that's why we cannot compute the standard deviation, right? Another function, useful function in a dplyr package, we can compute, you can construct a frequency table. Frequency table. Let's say I want to know the value of the frequency table for CYL. Right, it's one function. Before we go to the dplyr package, right, there are another function which is table, right, empty cars CYL. So it will also display the frequency value for each of the category, right? So this is a base table is a base the function from a base package, right? Let's look at dplyr. So let's say I want to know the frequency of CYL, just using empty cast, right? And then I'm going to use group by CYL, right? Let me put this way. And then I'm going to use summarize function, right? And then I'm going to put frequency. This is the name that I made up. Frequency 1. I think frequency CYL equal to N. So it will also display the value of frequency, right? But this is using the dplyr package is you have a advantage where you can compute the percentage for each category as well, right? For example, let's say I want to compute frequency table with relative frequency. Relative frequency means the value of probability lah. The total value, the frequency divided by total multiply with 100%. Or we don't need to multiply with 100% because this is a probability value. So, right, empty cast group by, let's say CYL, right? And that one is I'm going to do summarize frequency for CYL equal to N, right? And then I want to create a new variable, which is I need to do some calculation here. So I need to use mutate relative frequency. This is a relative frequency is a name that I made up, so you can put in the name. So frequency dot CYL. So I'm taking this value divide by the total of this value 11 plus 7 plus 7 14, which is some. I'm going to use summation sum frequency dot CYL, right? So it will display the relative frequency for that variable column, for that categorical variable, right? So if you want to create a frequency, a relative frequency with percentage, you just need to multiply with 100%. Right? I just copy this one. This is the same function that I'm going to use. So then we'll multiply with 100%. So it will display relative frequency. Ataupun we can change the relative frequency to percentage. Right. So it will calculate the same thing. So I just change the name of the column. So now I have the value of frequency for each category and the percentage of that category. Right. So let's say we want to create a 2x2 table, right? Two-way frequency table. Two-way frequency table. So let's say I want to create a frequency table for CYL and gear, number of gear, right? So I'm using empty cast. Right, so I'm going to group by CYL and gear, right? And I'm going to summarize frequency equal to N, right? And then I'm going to create a percentage as well, mutate percentage frequency divided by summation of frequency multiply with 100%. So now it will create a 2x2 table, but in this function it not creating 2 by 2 table as cross tabulation that we have seen in SPSS and Stata. So if you want to see 2 by 2 table that contain column and row, right? So we need to use a package, right? So let's say we look at some useful package to describe data set, right? So instead of using dplyr package, right? So we need to, in dplyr package, we need to create our code by our own. So now we look at describing data from others package. Right. So the first package that we want to see is HF library HMISC. So if you don't have the library, you need to install it first, right? So the package, the first section, in this first section, I'm going to show you how to describe data for numerical, and then followed by categorical, right? So we look at for HMISC, there is a function to describe numerical data. For example, HMISC package, we have describe function. So let's say we want to describe empty cars MPG. So, oops. Right. In describe function, it will show us the value of the data set, how many observation, is there a missing value, how many distinct values, and then the mean of the variable, right? And then this is quarter number 1, quarter number 2, and quarter number 3. And this is, I think, the minimum value. I don't know, this is not a minimum value. Right. 0.5 mean 5 percentile, 10 percentile, 25 percentile, 50 percentile, 75 percentile, 90 percentile, and 95 percentile. Right. So it gives us the value based on percentile. Right. So it depends whether the value, the information is useful for us or not useful for us. So we also can use describe to get the summary for all variables. We just no need to specify the variables. So it will give us the same information, right? So this is one of the first package. Now we look at the second package. Second package that we want to use is passtag library passtag. Right. If you don't have, you need to install it first. So in library passtag, right, they will give us an additional information such as summation, median, mean, standard error, right? So the function that we're going to use is stat dot descriptive, descriptive, right? So we're going to put empty cars, let's say MPG, right? And we can put p-value equal to 0.95, right? If you want to see the documentation, you just type stat.descriptive, right? So by default, the function takes the value of x, which is the data frame of time series. So basic equal to true, this descending descriptive equal to true, and norm means normal distribution equal to false, and p equal to 0.95. 0.95 means we want to calculate the probability of accepting the region, right? So it will report for us, let's say, the value of minimum value, maximum value, range, summation, median, mean, standard error of the mean, confidence interval, this is a lower confidence interval, the variance, standard deviation, and coefficient of variation, right? So it depends how what is the information that you want, right? Most of the package give us all the value that they think good we need to know, but no, basically when we write a report we no need to specify all the statistic measure, right? So the third package that I'm going to show you is library psychology library PSYCH, right? If you don't have, you need to install first, right? So in library psychology, right, so we're going to use describe function mtcar mpg, right? If you notice, this function in psychology, right, is the same function used in HMISC, right? So if you run this one, it will do some it will not I think sometimes it will do it will have a conflicts whether you to use HMISC or psychology. So to be safe, better we put PSYCH double dot. So to give instruction to R that this function must be taken from library psychology, right? So if you can see, so in this function it will give us the summary, the value of observation, how many observations are there, mean, standard deviation, median, trim median, minimum value, maximum value, range, skewness, kurtosis, and standard error, right? Of course, we can put more than one variable to describe. Let's say PSYCH double colon describe mtcars mpg. Another one is mtcars I think, let's say, CYL. This is I want to get the summary measure based on group, right? Based on CYL, right? So let's say by using this function, right, it will not give any relevant information, right? So what I want is I want it to give the information based on group of CYL. Means I want cylinder 4, what is the mean for cylinder 4, what is the mean for cylinder 6 and 8. So I need to add another argument, which is MAT equal to true. Oops. Oh, sorry, not MAT equal to true. The function is described by. Then I will get the mean and standard deviation for each group, right? So if I use describe only, so it will not give any useful information, right? So if I use describe by, it will give the information based on group, right? So if you put in metric form, it will give us the nice result. Let's say MAT equal to true. So it will give us more nice presentation, right? So now let's look at another function, another library, which is library number 4, right? So I'm going to use schema library. So library skmir s3 schema. So if you don't have the library, you need to install first, right? In library schema, right? So we're going to use a function named as scheme. So empty class. Let's say I want to show a variable for MPG. So in this function, if you can see, it report to us the value of, let's say I make it this wider. So it report to us the missing value, what is the complete observation or valid observation, and then mean, standard deviation. This is the minimum value, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and the maximum value. It also report us the histogram of the data set. So as I said, the data, this package are suitable for numerical type of variable only, right? If you have categorical variable, for example, let's say I put CYL, let's say I put empty cars 2 equal to empty cars, right? Dimension empty cars 2, right? So let's say I change CYL to categorical data as vector, cars 2 CYL. Right. So let's say I want to find the summary for categorical variable, for this categorical variable. So I just use scheme empty cars 2 and put as CYL. So now, if you can see, it cannot compute mean and standard deviation for categorical variable. So this function is quite good to differentiate whether to result to report the summary measure for categorical variable and numerical variable. So as I said, this function, this library are meant for numerical variable only. But somehow there is a function for categorical variable, but we will look at later. So if you in scheme R function, we can use this function into a dplyr package, right? So we can use this function scheme into dplyr package. For example, let's say I want to group by CYL, right? And then I call scheme. Oops. Group by empty car. Right. So what I will do is it will create a separate statistic measure for each CYL group. So for CYL equal to 4, it will calculate the value of mean standard deviation for each others variable, and so for 6 and 8, right? Are you okay? Right. Let's look at another package, which is package number 5. Right. So I'm going to use library summary tools. So if you don't have, you need to install it first. Right. Summary tools. In summary tools, it will report more complex statistical measure, right? So let's say we use the function that we're going to use is describe. Describe R. Let's say I want to report empty cars. I want to know the summary of empty cars, right? So since we are having same function later we're going to use the same function on the next different library. So better we use summary tools to specify this function came from summary tool library, right? So we use a double dot function, right, to specify this function came from summary tools, right? So if you run this function, so it will report us the overall descriptive for each variable, which is the summary measure is more than previous package. So it report mean, standard deviation, minimum value, quarter 1, median, quarter 3, maximum, inter-quarter range, coefficient of variation, right, skewness, standard error skewness, courtesies, number of valid observation, and so on, percentage of valid observation for each variable. So this is one of the good package and function to use if you want to know the overall statistical summary, right? In summary tool, it also provide us if you want to display the statistical summary into HTML, right? So you can use df summary function, right? So this is to view in HTML format, right? So summary tools, right? So we're going to use df summary, right? Let's say empty cars, right? So it will display us with a graph of the variable, right? In this one, they will display the dot graph, right? So it show us the the value of minimum, median, and maximum, median, mean, inter-quarter range, and so on. So it depends which package you want to use, right? Right. The last package that I want to show to you is package number 6, which is table 1 package library, table 1, right? This library is most useful. It has a most useful function, which is normally if you want to report a data in a result, so we usually report mean and standard deviation, right? We usually report mean and standard deviation. So in this library, it only report mean and standard deviation for each variable, right? Let's say we use create table 1. Create table 1, data equal to empty cars. Right, so wait, I need to call this library first, right? So as you can see, it report mean and standard deviation for each variable. So this is one of the good function. So if you want to create, you want to have more variable, more summary statistic, you can type summary create table 1 and then put empty cars. Oops, data equal to empty car. Right. So it will report us more statistical measure, such as mean, standard deviation, median, and so on, right? Okay. Sometimes we want to report mean, standard deviation, and some of the important statistical measure. Not every, such as mean, I say mean, standard deviation, minimum value, and maximum value, for example, right? So we can use another library number 7, which is library DESC table, right? So we're going to use DESC table function, so for empty cars, right? So now, if you can see, there is a lot of missing value, right? So if you want to list down one of your important statistical measure only, so we can use this table empty cars. Let's say I put another argument, stats equal to list. I want to put number of observation, which is length, right? And then, sorry, another one, I want to put mean. This is mean, SD equals to SD, and then the minimum value, and the last one is the maximum value, let's say. Equal to max.
Anak aku cakap apa? Pressure.
Right. So by using this function, it will report only mean, standard deviation, mean, minimum value, and maximum value, right? So now I'm going to show you how to summarize a categorical variable. For 7 package that I show you, right? This is for numerical variable. So the next function is to summarize of a categorical data. Right. To summarize categorical data, we can use from the package, a base package, we can use table function, empty cars, CYL. So let's say CYL is a categorical variable. So it will show the category for each CYL and the frequency for each CYL, right? So if the data contain missing value, right? So you want to show the missing value as well in the category frequency table, right? So we can use if any argument after CYL. So table empty cars CYL, you can put if any, sorry, use an A if any. Right. So in this data set, we don't have any missing data, so there will not display any missing value. For example, let's say we create another variable bg2, let's say repeat sim boy and girl, right? And then I'm going to put NA in the data set times 50. So I'm going to create 50 BG2. So I'm going to create 100 50 observation, which is consists of boy, girl, and missing value. So missing value is 50, girl 50, boy also 50. So then I'm going to put it as a data frame BG2. Then I'm going to tabulate. I want to know how many boys, how many girls, how many different missing value. If I just type table BG2, right? So it will display 50 boys and 50 girls. In fact, when I created the variable, so I also include 50 missing value. So if you use table only, it will not display the missing value. So if you want to know how many missing value are there in the table, so you need to add another argument, use NA equal to if any. So it will report the missing value as well in the table. All right. Okay. If you want to get relative frequency by group, just now we already look at by using a dplyr package. This is based on base package to get relative frequency by group. So let's say we are using prop.table, right? So we need to table, let's say empty cars CYL. So it will display relative frequency by group, right? Instead of we use table for CYL, it will display the frequency. We use prop table to get relative frequency, right? So if you use prop table BG2, right? So it will display the relative frequency for the categorical variable, right? So from the base package, right? We already look at dplyr package where we can combine frequency and percentage together, right? So if you are using base package, it's going to be a very complex and require more codes to develop a frequency table with percentage, right? So now I'm not going to show you how to compute, how to develop a frequency table with percentage using base package, right? So now we're going to look at some useful package for categorical variable, right? So the first package that we're going to see is janitor package, library janitor, right? So if you don't have, you need to install it first, right? So in library janitor, so we can use a function named tabyl, right? So we put the categorical variable, let's say empty cars CYL, and we sort equal to true. So it will automatically show the value of CYL for each category, the frequency and the percentage, right? So the effort to get this value is only one line code, right? So this is very useful package. So second package that I'm going to show you is we can display the frequency table with a bar graph, right? For example, you need to use library AP display library, right? So if you don't have it, need to install first. So for AP display library, we use tab 1, right? Tab 1 function. So we put empty cars CYL, right? And we sort by group equal to decreasing. Let's say if you want to make it decreasing, or if you don't want, just ignore this function, this argument, right? And we want to include cumulative percentage as well. So it will report us the value of frequency, the frequency table, percentage, and cumulative percentage, also with the bar graph, right? So it will report with the bar graph. Okay. Any questions so far? Do you have any question? Right. The third package that we're going to see is a G model library, G model. Right. So G model, it will show the result as in as we can see in SPSS result. It's a same presentation as in SPSS. So the library G model, right, we're going to use cross table function, right? Let's say empty cars CYL, and we want to format as SPSS, right? So it will return as in percentage in SPSS format, right? So the result presentation look like as SPSS format. We can also change it to others format, right? You can see the documentation cross table, right? So they have SPSS format and SAS format, right? Okay, so just now we already look at how to display a 2x2 frequency table using dplyr package, right? So but in dplyr package, it will not display in a nicer way. So we can use the cross table function to display two-way contingency table, right? Cross table, so that empty cars CYL, let's say I want to display with gear, right? And format equal to SPSS. So it will display a 2x2 table in a nicer way, right? And the last package for categorical variable that I want to show is question R package library, question R package, right? In question R package, right? So we can display a frequency table. Let's say in question R package, the function that we're going to use is FREQ function, right? So FREQ function I think there are many packages are using the same function name. So we need to specify which function, which library we are referring for, right? So we use empty cars, CYL, and we can set cumulative equal to true, and we can sort equal to decreasing, and we can also input total for each for the frequency table, right? It will include the total in the frequency table as well, right? I think for data summarization, I think that's all, right, that you need to know. Maybe there are a lot of data other summary numerical that you need to know. You can Google it and find books to study some summary of function, right? So I think that's all. On the next class, we will do we're going to apply this function in a real data set. We try to manipulate data and do a data summarization. So class, do you have any question? Any questions so far? If you don't have question, then I think that's all. Okay. We meet on the next class. Our next class on Wednesday, right? Okay. So see you then. Assalamualaikum.